Today we're gonna be looking at a simple tutorial on how to implement a Tic Tac Toe in Godot. It's gonna be quite simple. We are mostly gonna implement it with UI nodes, events, and just plain old nodes. That's it. So let's see it in action. I'm gonna have like this starting button to start the game. It starts a turn timer, and then you can select whichever field you want, and just one. So whenever we select one, we cannot select multiples. We have to deselect this one and select another one. So let's start and turn. And now we change the player and we can do the same. And we cannot affect previous positions, previously selected positions. So let's just quickly end the turns. Have the victory for X. And if you would like to continue, then after the video, you can obviously add here the button to reload the scene, or in other words, restart the game. But that's pretty much it. So let's get started. So let us first look at the diagram, which shows the main components of the system. It's pretty simple, but just to have some overview. I'm gonna have a game manager, which is gonna be responsible for the main loop, so checking for win condition, checking for draw, and updating the whole game state, so the game field, which fields are taken, which are not, and for triggering the change of player and new round. Then we're gonna have game events and global enums. This is just gonna be an enum for the player, so basically no player, quote quote, X and O's. Then we have the game events. These are gonna be like end of turn, change of player, end game, and start game. Then we have a turn manager, which is low key just a timer so that the rounds are limited, and also a button that will trigger the end of turn in case the timer hasn't run out yet. And then we have here field UI controller and current player controller. Current player controller, it's gonna be, well, the name tells it all. And the field UI controller is gonna manage the whole UI of these fields. So Tic Tac Toe will have like 9 pressable icons, so to speak, and those are just gonna be set or unset and a few properties, and field UI controller is gonna manage the whole thing. That's basically it. So here I have a setup project, so a few folders. I have assets, scenes. Within assets I have sounds, sprites, and that's it. You can get those, basically the easiest way, just get them from my repository. You can find the link in the description. So that's it. And then we have scenes, which includes autoloads, managers, and UI, and beneath UI controllers. It's gonna be pretty simple. This is not a large project, so we're gonna keep it as is. Otherwise, you'd probably have a lot more folders, maybe for game objects, components, and so on. Now let's first create autoload nodes. And yeah, let's go with the game events. Okay, so we now have the game events. Game start, player changed, game ended, and turn ended. Both player changed and game ended signal accept a new player ID and a victory, which are both of type global enums dot player ID, which is an enum, which we have defined in the global enums. and the enum can be either no, X, or O. So no is basically an, I don't know, for example, an empty field. Now, obviously, we still have an error here because we haven't defined the global enums as a autoload node. So for example, currently we would need to assign these nodes into the main scene, but we're gonna go the autoload node, which is project settings, and we go to globals, and now we find the path of the desired nodes, for instance, game events. We leave this is gonna be the name of the node or code type. And that's it. Now let's add the other one, which is okay, global enums. We leave it as is. We add it, close. Now this error should also go away. Yeah, okay. Now what that means is that whenever we start a scene, for instance, when we create the main scene, which is gonna show the actual grid, these two nodes are gonna be loaded automatically. So each scene in Godot is basically root. Imagine instead of these game events, it would be root. And then we would have underneath the root the node game events and the node global enums. And then it would be the node named, I don't know, main level. And whatever the main level contains would be then stacked under that node. Okay, so now let's create the play field or the field that we can click. And I also noticed that I have game events here. I'll move them to autoloads. And now let's go with the other one. Okay, we need other node. Let's create a margin container, I guess. And add a texture. Yeah, texture rect. That's gonna be it. Yeah, let's focus. Click F. Ta, ta, ta. And let's make this margins. Let's add a script. Or maybe let's first rename it. I guess playfield, most appropriate. Let's save it. We're gonna save it under UI, just here. No need to complicate. And let's add a script, playfields. Let's also name the class. Okay. It's gonna have a few public methods. So we want to be able to check if the icon is set. We want to set the icon. And that's pretty much it. We also want to know if it's locked. So, and yeah, when it's clicked, we need to trigger a signal. So let's start with the signal. Signal field. I'm just gonna write it out and then we can talk and check it. And I usually want textures or private variables start with an underscore. So I'm gonna do it like so. Okay, I think this is it. Let's try it out quickly. We need to also change this expand mode. We are gonna ignore size, and we're gonna keep us aspect centered. I think that's the settings we wanna have. Let's try it out. Okay, we have some errors. Let's see. Of course. Let's project settings. We need to assign an input map action. So now we go to input map and add new action, which is left click. We add it and we assign the left mouse button like so. And this is it. Now let's try it again. Nothing happens. Nothing happened, obviously, because, well, we don't actually set anything. We just emit a signal. But I'm currently printing test. So let's check it out if it prints test. And we see it prints test. So we can now remove this. And I'm found a mistake as well, which is I had a O sprite twice. We have to change the second O sprite to X sprite actually. But other than that, I think this is looking pretty okay for now. The controller, which is gonna be a simple node. Let's name it build UI controller, I guess. And let's save it under controllers. Let's add a script. These settings are fine. Let's name it class name, build UI controller. And let me first write it out, and then we can discuss it. But in a sense, it's gonna be setting next empty fields for our end of turn, in case the player hasn't selected any. And it's gonna be freezing and unfreezing the fields. And basically the logic that it does when one field is clicked. So let's implement it and then we can go through the code together. We have a last field index. This is gonna be basically the index of the last field that was selected before we enter the turn. Then we have all the fields. We have the current player, so basically the player that is currently active during the turn. Set next empty field, we're gonna use this one to automatically set a field when the player doesn't select a field and ends the turn. Either the turn is ended by the timer or it clicks on the end turn, then we automatically basically go over the fields and select the first field that's empty as the one that the player is gonna use. Then we have the basically, well, the last field. We freeze or lock the last field that was selected. Both of these methods are going to be used in the game manager. What else? We have to connect to the event of the player changed, because when the player changes, we want to basically update our current active player. And we need to connect to the on-clicked signals from the fields. So whenever a field is clicked, we need to call this method. And what this method does is, if the field is already set, then we basically cancel that selection. So we make it empty again. We set it as if we haven't picked any field, and then we unfreeze the fields. So we unfreeze all empty fields that they can be clickable again. This basically helps us to always have a the user can always select just one field and not multiple. And if the field wasn't set, so it's an empty field, then we basically select it. We store its index, we set the icon, and we freeze all other fields. And these are the methods for freezing/locking other fields, or unfreezing/unlocking. And here we have on player changed. This one is gonna be called whenever the player changed event is emitted. And whenever a player is changed, so we get a new player, that's usually at the start of the turn, we need to reset the last field index. We need to unfreeze fields, so those that are empty. And we need to update the current active player. Anyway, I was being really smart beforehand, how I don't have a mistake here anymore, but I do. We have to freeze/log the fields. So now it's okay. First, let's do the player controller, the current player controller. It's gonna be a node again. Controllers is fine. And we need the script, that's true. And let's name it like so. And honestly, it's just gonna be a bit of logic for setting the actual UI node for current player. So we need to have an export var. And I'm gonna comment that out for now. But essentially, we'll need this one. When the player is changed, we need to know that. So for now, let's leave it as is. We now need to create a player UI for displaying, and then we can use it in here. It's gonna be a margin container again, although it could be basically a container panel, whatever. Let's panel container. We add label, and yeah, let's do 555, I guess. Let's okay. Let's name it current player UI. Let's store it under UI. Let's add a script. This is fine. Let's just have one method for setting the text. And let's make this node unique, because, well, it is. And now we just drag it in. We set the text to the string we pass in, like so. We remove the rest, and that's basically it for this node. Just some placeholder text, player X. So currently it's like so. I'll leave it like so, minimal size. And I'm gonna align it differently, center and center. And that's okay for me. Now we can go back to the player controller. We can uncomment this. And whenever we change the player, we set the text, set current player. And we set it to, in this case, to O. In this case, to X. And well, in this case, let's just do it like so. That's basically it. Now let's do an audio button. So whenever we click a button, sound effect will play out. So we create a button and we add a child node, audio stream player, not audio stream player 2D, but audio stream player. Audio stream player 2D is used for 2D scenes, and it basically, it's a positional sound. So it plays differently depending on where the node is located in the scene. And now let's store it. Let's do it in UI. Oh, just a second. Rename it as well. Audio button. And now let's store it. This is fine. Let's create a script. And now we go under nodes, signals. And whenever we press it, and let's connect it. This is gonna connect the signal to our code. We remove this. I don't think we need this. Basically, whenever the button is pressed, this function is gonna be called. So what do we want to do in this function? We drag this in. We play the sound. That's it. We go to the audio stream player inspector and we assign the sound effect. We go under assets, sounds, sorry, and we just assign one of those. This is it. Let's now create the timer. So we're gonna create a turn manager and the timer node. Timer is gonna throw, well, the current time of the turn, and the turn manager is gonna basically emit the signal for ending the turn based on either the button was clicked, so the button end turn, or the timer ran out. Turn manager, we're gonna store that under managers. Although honestly, it could have been a turn controller. Let's say it does more than a controller, which would be more UI focused, but it's such a small project that in this case, it really doesn't matter. Let's create the script and let's also create a UI. So the timer. We're gonna, now let's go with the panel control container and let's add margin container. Let's say add a label. Let's zoom in a bit and let's here do 30, center it, center. Let's also increase the size. Team overrides and we go to font sizes, we enable it, and let's, I don't know, 32 perhaps. Let's, yeah, like so. Let's maybe also add some margins like 10, 10, 10, 10. Yeah, that's okay. And perhaps let's make it wider, 60. 8 perhaps, yeah, okay. Okay, Looks all right. Let's, I don't know, time UI perhaps. Yeah. And let's save it under UI. Save, and let's create a script as well. And in the script, we edit the class name, time UI, and let's add just one function. And let's assign the text, and let's make this access as unique. Hop, and we need to assign text. Let's do some really simple formatting. We'll have 2 places, and then we just want 2 decimals. Okay, so I think this is it. Let's remove this. Let's go back to turn manager now. Let's add name. And well, we're gonna need a timer. We will have to be able to start around on each frame. We want to update the UI with the new time. When timer times out, we want to signal the end of the turn. And if the button is clicked for turn ending, we also want to signal the end of the turn. First of all, though, let's add a canvas node for UI. Well, canvas layer. Leave this as is for now. And let's instantiate a child scene, which is our timer. Let's anchor it to the right part of the screen. And let's also add an button, our audio button, and let's anchor it at the bottom. And turn. Perhaps we could make it bigger. Maybe something like 150. Yeah, this is okay, probably. So I set the anchor offsets a bit. We're gonna be anchored to the bottom screen, but I wanna be offset a bit so that it's not really completely at the borders. But that's it. Now I wanna go to signals, and on pressed, we wanna do something. And turn button pressed. Gonna connect to that. And we need to go to the timer, which we don't have yet. So let's add it, timer. And we need to connect the timeout signal. So whenever the timer finishes, we need to do something like so. Yeah. Let's also make this unique because we're gonna be accessing it. And that's it. We can also do the same for the timer. Now we can control drag and we get like this. So when the node's ready callback was finished, after that we can access the node itself as well. On turn manager, we said we need to start the round. Basically, this is it. We need to start the round. On process, we need to update our time UI with the time left. Whenever end turn button is pressed, we stop the timer if it's not already stopped, and we emit the turn ended signal. And on timer timeout, we basically do the same. And that covers turn manager and the time UI. Let's now create the start game pop-up. So basically like a starting menu, which when the player presses play, starts the first round. So let's do the margin container. And let's fill the whole screen with it. This is gonna help us so that the players will be unable to click any other buttons or fields, since this margin container will capture all events. So let's go. Now let's add a panel container. And we're gonna do this pretty simple. Let's just, well, increase the margins and we're gonna get a smaller pop-up. It works in this case, so. And of course, we don't need to have a beautiful UI. We just wanna see the functionalities. Maybe 200. Yeah, that looks okay. And let's add a vertical box. Let's add another margin container. Let's add a label. And let's, no, that's not correct. Let's instantiate child synth, which is our audio button. Let's rename it to play button. And let's add some description here. Honestly, center, and I don't know, start the game with when ready, start the game. Something like that. Maybe we can increase the font size to, I don't know, 32. Guess, yeah, looks okay. Play button is start. And we could also increase the font size here, maybe 32 again. Yeah. What else? We could set this alignment. This is okay. Now let's separate it a bit more. 20 pixels maybe, like so. And let's expand. Let's go to layout, container sizing, and let's expand on the vertical axis, like so. And this looks okay. Let's add some margins, but I don't think they're gonna affect much in this case. Okay. And maybe I would add some margins for the start button as well. Let's do it. So let's put the button in there and let's go to team overrides, add the margins, 20, 20, 20, 20. And let's save it. Not the margin container, but I don't know, start game pop-up, let's say. So, and let's save it first. And let's set the script. So what does this need to do? Well, basically we need to connect the play button. So we go to play button, node, signals, and on pressed. And let's connect it. And let's do a really simple animation. So let's create a twin. We need a tree. And let's create twin. Yeah, not the right one. Freaking typos. Twin property. Let's make it really simple. So we're gonna twin ourselves and scale. And we're gonna go to vector 0. And let's set it to 0.3 duration. And let's set the easing. I don't know. In is out. And the transition, which is gonna be, let's go with the cubic. We play the twin and I wait for it to finish. And after it's finished, we can continue with call word Q3. Before that even, let's emit game events dot game start, like so. Let's try it out. Let's see if it's actually freed. So we click, let's say, let's see if it exists. I mean, it should, obviously, but let's go to remote in our Godot editor, and we see the pop-up here. And you can also see the root and game events and global enums, basically the hierarchy that I explained at the beginning of the video. And we see it's freed. Okay. Now, why does it move like it does? Like into the corner? Because we have, if we go to inspector of the start game pop-up node and we go to layout and we go to transform pivot offset. So our pivot is in the top left corner. We could move it to the center, which could basically could be done just like so. Take the size and just divide it by half, and we have it in the center. And now I think it should scale inwards. Yeah. Now let's do the end game. It's gonna be, we ain't gonna do animations or anything. We're just gonna boom, make it visible, and that's it. So what we need, well, we're gonna do it similarly to start game pop-up. So other node, and we go to margin container, and let's make it again whole screen. Let's add a panel container. Let's do the same thing as before. Team overrides constants. Let's, I don't know, 200. Let's just stick to the basics. So yeah. Oh, sorry. The Control S muscle memory, Unreal. Let's add another margin container. And now we add the label. Victory for player, I don't know, X. It's gonna be our base. The center, and let's increase in size, font sizes. Let's make it 32. Let's add some margins. I don't know, 30, 30, 30, 30. Doesn't really affect much. Let's name it end game screen. And let's save it now. Make the label unique as well, sorry. And now let's add a script. Here we don't, yeah, we need the ready. So we need to connect to the end game event. Game ended, yeah, and connect self on game ended. So what do we need to do? We make ourselves visible first. Then what do we need to write? Well, it depends who the victor is, right? So let's match. And let's see. This signal gives us the player. Okay, so we can access the player here. And result in this case is O. Come on. And anything else is draw. Okay. Now we drag in the label, change the text this to the result, and that should be it. Now, before we start with the game manager, let's create the play area. And honestly, let's just create the canvas. Like so, and let's add a background. Make it full screen. something like that. Now what else? Well, we need to low-key collect all of the already created nodes, right? Maybe we could create the grid first. Let's maybe add a margin container. We make it stretch the whole rectangle. And let's add a grid container. Let's make it 3 columns. Let's stretch it. It should be stretched. Now let's instantiate child since we need the field, right? The play field to be more exact. Now we need 9 of those. So yeah. And we could set minimum sizes for them. So we select all of them. Let's go to transform. Sorry, to layout. Let's make it, I don't know, 80, maybe even 100. Like so. And let's go to grid container again and team overrides constants. Let's do some separations. 50. How does that look? Looks all right. Well, let's add margins. And also add the indices now for the playfields. We'll need to offset it. Okay. Okay. So I guess like so. So we went to the grid container and we put it to shrink center to have it centered. Now that's the play field, right? So this is the play area. And this is the play area grid. Grid. Okay. Now we can instantiate other stuff. So let's maybe start with the no. Well, why not? We can go to start game popup. This is gonna be this is gonna be visible, but let's make it invisible for now. We need the end game screen. We can make this is gonna be invisible all the time. It's gonna become visible only at the end. We need now player. We'll need both. Let's first set the UI. Yeah, I think at the top there it's okay. And we need also the controller, right? Let's move it to the top and let's also assign the current player. Now we need the turn manager as well. Let's move it to the top. Have the end turn and the 30 timer. Let's save it. We can save it here. And let's try to play it or start it. Let's see what happens. Okay, we lose the end turn button and the 30, so the timer. The issue might be because of the canvas stuff. So maybe if we reduce this to 0, because in turn manager we also have a canvas and that one is on layer 1 and this was on layer 1 as well. And because it's at the top, it's first drawn and the other stuff is drawn on top of it. But now that this is on layer 0 and this is on layer 1, if we go here, right, we have this canvas layer 1. Ouch. And we go here, we are now at 0. I think now it should be shown. Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Almost forgotten. We need our trusty playfield controller, right? Maybe controller, field UI controller. Here we go. This one needs, this one has the arrays, right? So we have 9 of them, and let's assign them. Almost forgot the most important part of the whole thing. Honestly, it would probably be easier to have it as a pre-packed, preloaded scene and then just dynamically instantiate those on startup than like putting all this together. Okay, we have an error. Of course, it's a typo. Start again. Cool. Okay. Obviously, nothing works yet correctly because we need a game manager, but at least we can click on those. Maybe the next thing that we need is the... it's hard to see this grid, right? So might be beneficial to add some lines. Let's do it. Separate line. Here we go. Horizontal separator. Let's put it here. Don't duplicate it. Let's first adjust it. Let's just make it really simple, like so. And we move it somewhere here. And now we duplicate it and let's move it somewhere here. And let's see if we let's move both slightly lower, like so. Okay, and now we need to add the vertical separator. Don't duplicate it. First adjust it. Full screen, something like that. And now we move it. Shift move to somewhere here. Duplicate, shift move to somewhere here. Let's see. Missed it. Now let's check. Not the best, but it will do. Something like that. Okay. Okay, save it. And let's move to the game manager. Game manager is gonna be, again, just a plain node. And it's gonna take care of the following things. It's gonna check, it's gonna have a constant max turn, which is gonna be 9. And this we're gonna use for checking when the game comes to a draw. It's gonna check for a win condition, low-key checking the column sum and the row sum. And it's gonna check the diagonals, the diagonal and the anti-diagonal. Track the current active player and switch it up at the end of the turn. As I said, we need a normal node. Let's name it game manager. Let's first store it under managers. And let's add the script game manager, create, yeah. I'm first gonna basically implement it and then I'm gonna go through the code. Okay, that was quite a lengthy function. In an ideal world, or if this was a more serious project, I would probably separate the nodes a bit differently, make the architecture maybe a bit more adaptable to changes. And definitely I wouldn't have a function that's low-key almost 100 lines, because the functions or larger methods should really like read like a book, you know. This should be a chapter for obtaining the last clicked field and making it locked. Then this one should be updating the in-game field, so the actual field, not the UI presentation. This one here is checking the win/draw condition, including with this one and this one. And here it's changing the player and then adapting or changing the emitting the event and starting a new round low-key. So, but to go over it again, we have a turn manager and a controller of the UI fields. We have then the max turns, we have the turn counter, we have the actual play field, and we have the currently active player. On start, we first connect ourselves to the game start event and the turn ended event. And on game start, we trigger the player changed so that all nodes that are listening to player changed can update their UIs. And we start the round. And when the round ends, we first update the turn counter. Then we lock the selected field node, right? So the, I don't know, one of the cells in the 3x3 grid. Then we update the actual play field, so like our internal grid, to the correct value based on the player ID. It's either a 1 or a -1. And then we check for the win condition. We obtain the row column indices based on the last field index. This is a linear index. And then we check just the corresponding column and row and both diagonals. We then check if anything sums up to 3 or -3. That's why we have the absolute. And if it does, well, someone reached 3 in a row, right? And if that happened, we're gonna emit the game ended event with the current player. If the turn counter was also reached, so it was a last round, we set draw to true as well. But since we are first checking for the win condition, we first deal with this and then we return out of it. So we basically end the game, quote, quote. But if the win was not reached on the last turn, then this doesn't trigger and we trigger the draw event. And if neither of those are true, so it's not the last round and it's not a round where a player won, we switch the players, we emit event that the player has changed, and we start another round. Okay, so let's make our final adjustments to the play area canvas. Let's first instantiate the game manager. Up. Now let's connect the turn manager to it and the field UI controller. Then let's save it, I guess. And now we need to make start game popup visible. And I've also noticed that in the play field, we assigned, or I assigned an incorrect number here. So the index here should be 8, like so. Otherwise, we're gonna index outside the bounds of the array. That's it. And another thing that I remembered is in the turn manager, we can click here to get to the scene. the timer is 1 second, which is quite fast. Let's make the turns like, I don't know, 15 seconds. Now, all that we are left is to try it out. Let's click the play scene. Okay. Obviously, it's transparent because it's the default theme, and I won't be adjusting the visuals. You can do that if you really want to make it look better. But for now, we are just focused on functionality. So let's click start. Player X, okay. Let's select X. And let's perhaps end the turn. Now we should be O, yeah, we are. Let's select and turn. The timer is gonna auto-select a tile. It indeed does. Okay, cool. Well, this basically covers the whole tutorial. So hope you enjoyed it, and we hear each other next time.